everyone. Amy coming at you. I have not done a live in a long time, but just wanted to do this really quick. Hey, everyone. It has been a while since I've done a live. Amy Hawkins coming to you. I just wanted to do a quick overview of some stuff that you should be paying attention on. So for those of you that value home education, pay attention. For those of you that do homeschool, pay attention. For those of you that are homeschool alums, pay attention. For those of you that are like, I don't really know that I should ever care about homeschooling, pay attention. There is an effort going on right now to scurry around the state and make sure families, citizens are well looped in with the potential threat to homeschool freedoms happening. And it is urgent and important that you and your peers who care about this topic pay attention. Michigan has been very fortunate. I am a homeschool alum. I did most of my home education in Michigan. I've worked in the political scene, well aware of homeschooling and working with groups that are working to serve home educators. And overall, homeschooling has been a breeze in the state. And to therefore, I'll put it that way. Therefore, because it has been so smooth sailing, a lot of homeschool families have disengaged, and they have taken for granted, really, that homeschooling is something you really it is a priceless treasure. And yes, you as parents have the fundamental right to educate and raise your children, but it is not something that the government is just going to naturally leave their hands off of. And so for decades, homeschool families have been able to kind of walk away from engagement with the political arena, engagement with monitoring. How are my government leaders looking at us as homeschoolers? And so most homeschoolers nowadays, you have been fortunate to not even have to give this a second thought. I was homeschooled in the 80s and 90s, and at that time, I was one of the beginning homeschoolers. Not the first one, but it was still, it's more common now today than it was then. And my mom at the time was like, our homeschool freedoms are not guaranteed. Therefore, if we want to preserve our freedoms, we need to be engaged with our elected leaders, because if those freedoms were ever scrutinized, then we would have friends on the inside that we could pick up the phone and say, hey, state representative, it was so good to see you at the parade. Thanks for letting us walk in the parade with you and help you. By the way, I see there's this public policy that's coming up, and I just wanted to make sure you're aware of it and that you're standing with us to protect our freedoms. But the majority of homeschool families have been hands off. They've walked away. I'm just stating truth, right? They have been fortunate and that they haven't had to worry about it. And therefore, here's where we find ourselves. Right now in Michigan, you have a Michigan House and Senate that is controlled by Democrats. And therefore, that means that, whoever's in control, they're the party that gets to set the agenda. And the current executive branch is a Democrat leader, but even you could have a Republican leader in there. And if they don't understand the home education values and what matters to them, they could still make a bad move, right? So this is not a partisan discussion. This is just more a philosophy discussion. And in general, it is the Democrats that lean into giving more government control and more government oversight. And it is by default, in general, that Republicans tend to lean towards supporting home educators parents, families, to have individual rights, freedoms to do what they think is best. So with the current makeup in Michigan, you have the House and the Senate that are controlled by Democrats, and you have and you have a Governor Whitmer, who I would say does not fully understand or appreciate the holy sanctity of the homeschooling way of life. And there is also a state board of education that is chaired by someone who has been talking about, Superintendent Rice has been talking about trying to register homeschoolers. And for those of you that are new to the homeschool topic, that is a very dangerous subject, because homeschool families, the majority of them, 99.9% of them, are all about being responsible. Their kids are achieving more. They go farther than they even are required to by law. They go farther than even they would have to get by in the public schools. There is this atmosphere of love of learning. They critique, they curtail their education to topics and formats on how to learn. that jives with the student, right? Because every individual is precious and individual and unique in the eyes of God, and no two students learn exactly the same and see things exactly the same way. So homeschooling is built on freedom and high standards, very, very, very high standards, morally, ethically, family wise. I mean, just you name it. And so Superintendent Michael Rice is pushing for let's register homeschoolers because to them they see money and they see control. That to them, if they do not have the homeschoolers in their database, they can't track them down, pursue them, blah, blah, blah. So it's a very complex topic. And what you need to know is that it is a very hot topic right now in the state. So what people, friends of mine, groups that I've worked with, Citizens for Traditional Values, Salt and Light Global, Information Network for Christian Homes is the old name, but it's now Mission. Uh, they and many leaders around the state are rallying to better understand the topic and then to turn around and equip and educate citizens to start to speak up and show up and lean in to their elected leaders. And it is they are teaching the history. They are teaching on the current political dynamics of what is at stake. They are helping attendees understand ways to be effective, where to show up and where to message and how to message. And what is the current dynamics right now is that because let me put it this way, the anti understanding group of the state school board holds the majority, and the anti homeschool freedom group holds the majority in the House and the Senate. And all of you that have studied civics and how a bill becomes law, make sure that you are teaching your kids how this works, because it's a great education experience. All you need when you have one worldview controlling the chambers, you can more quickly pass policy. And then that policy, if it's in line with the one that holds the pen to sign it into law, it can move very quickly. So a scenario could be, Governor Whitmer could pick up the phone and say, hey, state rep, maybe the one who's the chair of the education committee, and say, hey, I really think we should put something into law that's registering homeschoolers, or it's setting these standards, or it's doing X, Y, and Z. And the House and that committee chair, that state rep, could say, okay, I'm on it. They could draft a bill could go to the floor, it could be pitched to the Senate, right? Like, it can move so quickly. Like, in a week's time, you could have a bill that is on the governor's desk that she's signing into law. And no matter how many, you may be saying, oh, but I know my Republican or my Democrat legislator is with me on this topic. I know they stand with me. Because of the party dynamics, like, no matter how many Republicans you have with you on this topic, they don't hold the speakership. So it is those that don't all fully stand with you, the progressives, the Democrats, they hold the speakership. So they are the ones that are going to control the agenda. So if you're sitting back and saying, oh, well, my Republican state rep is with me, I don't need to do anything, false. Because here's what happens. The legislators take what they hear from you, the constituents, and that helps them to gauge priority and what is important. So even your Republican legislator, they may not need 100 phone calls from you, but they need phone calls and emails from other people in your district that believe the same thing. So let me give you a scenario. Let's say you have a homeschool group. Let's say you're a homeschool leader, or maybe you are the chair of Kiwanis, or maybe you are a pastor connected with pastors all over the state, right? So you can put out the call to action throughout the state. We all want to be effective, right? The most effective way to influence a state legislator is to contact your own state legislator and to get other people to contact their state legislator. So let's say you're the leader of a homeschool group and you have 30 different families that are from 30 different counties. And so you don't need all 30 different families to contact your state legislator. You need each of them to contact their legislator, but don't stop there. They need to then turn around and find a dozen, 100, 500 different individuals. They may homeschool, they may not homeschool, but they need to be sending polite, respectful voicemails, phone calls, emails, handwritten notes, typed letters, social media messages, anything respectfully done so that you are so in your district where you live, as you get 100 different people from your church, people you work with, your neighbors who say, I love homeschooling, my grandkids are homeschooled, or I homeschooled my kids, you need to put information in front of them that describes the scenario and that then gives them a specific call to action. And what we need people to do is to politely contact their state legislators and to get more people to do it consistently and to say, hi, I'm Amy. I'm a homeschool alum. I just want you to know that I want homeschool freedom, strong homeschool standards to continue. Please defend and protect homeschoolers. Where do you stand on this issue? And you know what? There's nothing wrong with you calling back next week. And there's nothing wrong with you calling back the week after and just say, hey, state representative, I'm praying for you. I hope you're doing well, but I just want to see where we're at on this. I'm still monitoring. This still really matters to me. So what you need to do is you need to go to these freedom forums. You need to get on these email lists. You need to dig into what is being discussed and what is at threat and if you have a large group, if you have a radio show, if you have a newsletter, like put this information and put it out there. Ask people to be praying for their state legislators, obviously, and the State Board of Education, but they need to speak up. And then here's the next piece. We have got to start waking up homeschool families across the state. It's not just for this moment, but it's for a lifetime. If you value homeschool freedoms, if you value the right to life, if you value religious freedom, it's time to start getting involved in the process. It's a happy, amazing, wonderful process. I love this political world. Not everybody is called to it, but I do think that we need to be raising up more critically thinking students who are processing, like how many of you know there's an election on Tuesday the 27th? Is everybody ready? We've got to get more and more people tuned into the process, helping candidates get elected, showing up to town hall meetings, going to county commission meetings. Why? You may sit there and say, oh, but we're too busy with sports and we're too busy with music lessons and we're too busy. If you and your family don't start getting involved, there won't be an America for even your children and grandchildren to appreciate. This may be the year that you say, you know what, we're putting sports on the back burner. I want my kids to be able to have the freedom to play sports, boys against boys and girls against girls. And if you don't start engaging in the process and prioritizing the preservation of freedom, you may not have freedom to enjoy. So if you and your family are like, oh, we're so busy, life is busy, and there is time for what is important. So it is highly possible that you need to be praying about how do I reconfigure my life so that I can do my part and train up my children, train up my grandparents, whoever and everybody you can bring along with you. It is not a burden, it is a joy. This is an amazing arena to step into, and I want to encourage you to be informed, pay attention to what's going on in the home education. Do not hide from it. Don't be afraid of it. Don't go in with turning over tables. Go in with wisdom, go in with knowledge, go in with classiness, and treat these staff and elected officials how you would appreciate being treated. But what we need to do is make sure that those who are for and against homeschooling in the legislature, even the governor's office, that they are hearing happy people call in and say, this is a topic that matters to me. Please stand with me. So as I've shared events, I've shared information for these forums, please make sure and follow those pages and start to dig in because this matters. Your freedoms matter, homeschool freedoms matter, and the future of our nation is at stake. Thank you. Drop any comments and questions in the comment section and I'll do my best to help. But hang in there, you are needed.